in a couple minutes. So we went ahead and started the recording. This will be posted up to our YouTube channel after we kind of get done with this and clean it up. So in case you missed it or you have a colleague that missed the presentation, you can send them the link to the YouTube channel. So still got people rolling in here. I think Shruthi, I think I saw that we had, last I checked, it was like 144 people pre-registered. So it was not a bad turnout.
Yeah, I saw that also.
So, all right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the URISA Texas Speaker Series for June of 2022. I'm going to turn it over to co-host here, Courtney Rowe. She's going to kind of let you know of what's coming up and what's happening with URISA Texas. So Courtney, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Courtney Rowe. I am the chair of our events committee with URISA Texas. We are currently undergoing our scholarship crowd favorite voting. So check out the URISA Texas website and please log on and vote for your favorite map. There's social media posts and emails going out, so be on the lookout for reminders to go vote on your crowd favorite map for our scholarship winners. Next month, our very own Jordan Carmona will be presenting on his road path to his GIS career and what it has been like for his first year of managing a GIS department. So you really don't want to miss that next speaker series. And we are also looking forward to our next Mappy Hours. We plan on them revolving around an Esri UC recap. We're going to try to have one in Austin, Houston, and DFW. So more information to come on those later July Mappy Hours. And I also want to throw it out there. There's many of our URISA Texas members and representatives going to the Esri UC. If you were interested in joining together with them and aren't already in conversation, go ahead and email info@urisatexas.org so you can get more connected to our group. Looking forward to seeing all of you. Don't forget, at the bottom right corner of this screen is an opportunity for you to scan a QR code to volunteer with URISA Texas. We'd love to have y'all.
Okay. All right. Are we going to do the map where everybody signs in and lets us know where they are? Is that, do we have that fixed out here? Or if not, just post in the chat where you're located.
I just sent the link to the map if you guys want to check it out and fill it out. And also the link to the URISA Texas crowd favorite voting. So make sure to get on there and look at our scholarship map submittals. They're pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's always nice to see where everybody's located. We get people from all over the world. So in the United States, it's actually it's just not in Texas, but we welcome people from everybody. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and get started here. URISA Texas Speaker Series, June 21, 2022. I'd like to welcome Shruthi Srinivasan. She's a spatial analyst with the Texas A&M Forest Service, TAM FS, and she's also a fellow FAA 107 certified drone pilot. She's going to be talking to us today about technology and working forest. It's a topic that evolves constantly, and keeping up with it only makes forest management better. So Shruthi, thank you so much for presenting today. I'm going to turn it over to you, and thanks a bunch, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, for that introduction. And to kick off the presentation, I thought of just sharing a little bit about me. I did my bachelor's in geoinformatics and then pursued my master's in forestry with a GIS certification. And as Brian mentioned, I currently work as a geospatial analyst and also a certified UAV pilot. I also teach at Texas A&M University. I teach GIS for resource management. And yeah, I love connecting and networking with GIS professionals and anybody like who is interested to like learn and share. So I'm on LinkedIn. But yeah, before I start, I would definitely like to thank URISA Texas, the entire team for coordinating everything and having me on the speaker series. So with that, I thought of having this slide in here. So I know we have people from different backgrounds. Some of you might be aware of GIS Day or might have even participated in one. But if you haven't done so, each year Geographic Information Systems or GIS Day is celebrated across the globe on the third Wednesday of November to showcase how GIS is being used in real world applications that makes a difference in our everyday lives. So Texas, I believe, hosts one of the world's largest GIS days, and it's coming up in November. And I've enjoyed being part of the GIS day every year. So check it out if you're interested. Now, I don't really have like a agenda or an outline, but I thought of putting a couple of questions here, which I'll be answering through my presentation. And since we have audience from diverse backgrounds, hopefully something or the other resonates with what you're working on or what you would like to know. But yeah, a couple of questions. What we look at today is, how can you make a quick map of your property or any area and explore the different themes like soil or geology within the property boundary? And one more thing is 3D point cloud data. That's cool, that's useful. And we might have done it with a LiDAR, but can we do it with a UAV without a LiDAR on it? So those are like a few questions that we'll be looking at. And I'll talk more about the applications that we have developed and things like that. Now, before I kickstart and explain about different applications, I definitely wanted to talk briefly about the agency that I work at. So Texas A&M Forest Service is the first state forestry agency in the nation, which is also part of a land grant college. And it provides statewide leadership to assure the state's trees, forests, and related natural resources are protected and sustained for the benefit of all. It's also one of the lead agencies for incident management in the state. And our agency has also been a pioneer in adopting cutting edge technologies like unmanned aerial systems, augmented reality, and a lot of different things for various programs. So if you would like to learn more about the different programs, I've added the URL at the bottom of the slide. So you can definitely take a look there. Now, I would like to thank the entire Geospatial group and everyone in the agency who play a critical role in contributing content to the different applications. So whatever I'm going to share, it's definitely not my sole work. There's a lot of people working behind it. So I wanted to add that point here. And as you might already know, or if you're new to it, geospatial technology is used to acquire, manipulate, store, and display geographic information, to just put it in simple terms, right? So our group at Texas A&M Forest Service conducts geospatial analysis to help guide decisions on wildfire risk and forest resources. Now, as a state agency, our responsibility is to share what we know. And hey, what a great platform to do it today. So we host our applications under Texas Forest Information Portal, Texas Wildfire Risk Assessment Portal, and Texas Interagency Coordination Center. But I work in the forest resource development side of the agency, so I'll be focusing mostly on the Texas Forest Information Portal today. And this portal, Texas Forest Info Portal, hosts 31 different applications currently in various categories or filters. As you can see on the top, we have applications that fall under forest management, forest products, special trees and forests, community forestry, and landowner tools. So you don't need a login or you don't need to pay. It's all free. So feel free to check it out at texasforestinfo.tamu.edu. And you can also subscribe to updates for all our apps by clicking on the sign up menu on the top. So any new apps that we publish or any of the major updates that we do, you'll be notified. And if you have any questions about the apps or would like to provide feedback or comments, you can also do that from the contact option. So as you can see, there is a lot of information about every app, and I can easily spend 1 hour on each of them, but I'm not going to do that today because we have a cutoff. And my goal today is to introduce you all to this portal and just share a few applications, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any specific questions or need more information on a particular app. All right, so today I'll be sharing one application from each category or the filters that I was talking about. The first one is our most popular app from the landowner tools called Map My Property, which provides landowners and other interested users a quick and simple tool for making a map of their property that can be shared with others. So once you launch the app, all the applications have a tour, or if you click on the help, you'll be able to see that, which will introduce you to the different tools available in the app. So it's real easy, like if you follow the step-by-step instructions, nothing complex at all. And on this screen, if you look, once you search, once you find the location of where you want to create a map of your property or the boundary, you can use the custom draw toolbox, which contains tools to draw areas, circles, lines, and points of interest. In addition, text can also be added. So there's like a lot of different options. And once you have your boundary, the next thing is I wanted to mention about the load and save toolbox here. So the load and save toolbox allows you to load and save areas, lines, points, and even text. So you might be aware of GPX format, KML, which is Google Earth, SHP, which is an ArcGIS format. Now, one specific thing I wanted to talk about here is MMP, which is Map My Property file format. So this file format, which is native to Map My Property, allows you to save and later load all the work that has been done in a mapping session, including boundaries, areas and circles, lines, points of interest, and text. So this option is actually very helpful if you want to share the work that you have already created or resume it from where you have left. Now, on the right side, you see a couple of options like the small tools where you have the base maps window, which contains a collection of base maps that will display when selected. And below that, I think it's hidden behind the layers, but you have an elevation window, which allows to generate an elevation profile along a user-defined path. Now you also see the layers option here, where you can turn on or off contours, flood zones, hydrology, watersheds, wetlands, and parcels. And when you click on the question mark for any of the toolbox or any of the window that you open, it will have detailed information on where did we get the data from, resolutions, and a lot of technical details. So I would recommend to check it out if you have any specific questions, or reach out to us. So once you have your boundary drawn and the acres, that's automatically calculated. And the next thing would be to explore different themes that's available. So the themes toolbox contains several tools for displaying soils, vegetation, geology, and their attributes across the entire map or just within your property boundary. So you have options to flip it to your specific boundary, or you can have it for the entire state also if you want to view it. And you can generate reports, soils reports as a summary or a full report. There's a lot of options actually, depending on how detailed you want to generate a report on. Now, finally, once you're done, once you have chosen like what kind of theme you want to show on the map, you have the option to also create a printable PDF map matching the contents of your browser. So that's really cool, and you can share it with anybody that you would like to. Now, another option on the right side, which I like, is the swipe layers tool. So this window is used to interactively compare two different imagery layers for the state of Texas. So if you have a property where you want to see how it looked like in 2008 versus now, you can use that option to look at the changes or what has happened through the years. It's a temporal way of viewing things. Now, next we'll see an application from the community forestry or forest management category. So as you all know, or you might have already experienced, Texas continues to experience significant population growth. And growth has a positive effect on a city's economy and can keep it viable, right? But haphazard urbanization can negatively affect a community's urban tree canopy and quality of life. So urban tree canopy, or in short, UTC, is the layer of leaves, branches, and stems or trees that cover the ground when viewed from above. Now, these trees, all public and private in the community, comprise the urban forest and provide valuable services and benefits. Now, on this image that you see in the slide, the top part is a cross section or a profile view of the LiDAR point cloud, 3D point cloud data. And on the bottom, you can see all the mapped canopy. So whatever you see red color, so those are all the urban tree canopy that we mapped across the city. I can't remember which city it is, probably San Marcos. But yeah, if you launch this application, you have the option to click on the drop down and select a particular city. We have a bunch of cities in there, and we are continually adding new cities or updating the ones where we mapped using older data. So for example, here I selected Selena, and you can also see the layer is created from 2020 LiDAR data. So it would be either LiDAR data or aerial imagery in the past. So once you selected the city, you can look at the urban tree canopy. So all the green that you look there on the map, that's the mapped tree canopy. The good thing about this is you have the option to download the data as in the GIS format. So you can definitely download it, overlay with any of the layers that you have, and do analysis with it. You can also download reports and look at what is the canopy cover and what are the different attributes. Now, for example, in this particular slide, you see that as Selena grows, or any city for that matter, development will place many challenges on the natural environment. So tree planting, tree care, and natural forest regeneration have never been more important, right? So this study, it used available leaf-on aerial imagery or LiDAR data, whichever was available, and GIS to map and assess the UTC relative to zone averages, and predicted the future community growth as well. And we also utilized the forests on edge or fort geospatial model to identify urban landscapes predicted to experience above average housing density increased by 2030. Now you also see another radio button option which says canopy to change. So this canopy to change, or C2C, is comprised of existing canopy at risk of loss from predicted development and potential canopy to grow with that development. So when you explore this data and look at all the numbers here, so this is an example of the report that you get when you download it. All these data can help set goals and develop strategies to protect, maintain, and enhance the urban forest. Now, before I move on to the next application specifically, I wanted to share about story maps. So some of you might already worked on story maps, but this is one of my favorites actually. So we used ArcGIS story maps to create inspiring immersive stories by combining text, interactive maps, and other multimedia content. So our story map gallery, I've shared the URL at the bottom. It hosts nearly, I think, 14 to 15 interesting story maps. So when you get a chance, tour through them to learn about different things like ecologically important forests protected by the Forest Legacy Program. You can learn about the story of Bastrop wildfire and restoration, geocaching, and a lot more. So I just included thumbnails of all the different story maps that we developed. Now let's look at one of my favorite story maps, which comes under the special trees and forests category. So which is called Texas State Forests and Arboretums. So this is different from Texas state parks. Now, the state forests are working forests cared for with sound scientific forest management that protects and keeps in existence native flora and fauna. And arboretums, on the other hand, are places where varieties of trees are grown for research, educational, memorial, and ornamental purposes. Now, we used a combination of story maps here in order to kind of show the different facilities or what all is available on each of the state forest or arboretum. So if you look at this, when you launch the story map, you will see a carousel of pictures running through. And you can also click on each tab or on the left side. For example, the overview map shows the location, spatial distribution of all the state forests. And when you click on each of them, you can get the driving directions and also the weather forecast for each of the state forests. So it helps you plan your visit. Now, when you click on a specific state forest, for example, you see some information with really cool pictures. And on the main map window on the right side, there are a couple of tabs. So the first one, for example, is an interactive map. Previously, before we did all this, it was all static maps, which was good. But when you have interactive maps, it definitely gives that extra touch to it, where you can actually zoom in, pan, and interact with all different hiking trails. You can change the base maps, look at different things. So things like that, it definitely helps. You also have the option to click on the trail map and download a PDF, which is a GeoPDF, that's what we call it. So it's a geo-referenced PDF. And if you have apps like Avenza, you can load that trail map on your phone and actually look at your location. It's all like geo-referenced. Now, other options we have on these story maps are elevation profiles. It's not like that much useful for Texas, but it still like helps you generate an elevation profile for whatever a line or path that you draw on the map. One thing that's really cool here is also the change map. For example, if you take Jones State Forest, which is actually in Conroe, Texas, the yellow line or the yellow line is the boundary of the state forest. So if you look towards the right, you see how the development has been like growing from 1996. There was literally like nothing from there to 2015. I'll have to update this with newer imagery, but change maps helps us to see how things have been changed from different years. It gives you that temporal variation of things when you look at it. All right, moving on to the next application. This one's from the forest products category. The timber supply analysis web application estimates the amount of timberland and timber volume, weight, growth, and removals in the US South within a user-specified distance from a point of interest. So estimates are derived from a Forest Inventory and Analysis, FIA, which is a US Forest Service program conducted in partnership with State Forestry Agency. So the top image, that was the one that I actually captured with a drone when we were kind of looking at the logging operations. So it's definitely cool to see things from a very different perspective. Now, when you launch this application, it looks something like this. And what I really like here is you have different case studies. Like if you look on the left, of course, you can click on, you can take the tour and learn about all the different tools. But here you can also learn about all these case studies and the timber supply analysis approach and how to go about these scenarios. It kind of poses a question and has step-by-step instructions on how you can think and go about each different scenario. Now, you also have the option to search for an address, and then you can filter the state. You can choose the ownership, public, private, and generate summer statistics. And you can look at the legend here. It shows all the mills, boundaries, forest and non-forest layer, which was actually created from FIA data and a couple of other layers. And did you also know that you can download reports from the timber supply in East Texas from this particular application? So these reports include information on trends and amounts of timberland and timber, pulpwood and saw timber, hardwood and softwood. So you can get as much as detailed as you can want. It also has the latest growth and removals information for the region. And the other thing, if you look at this slide on step 3, you have that calendar icon next to filter by state. So this one shows the most recent data that's available for each state. And definitely if you click on the help option or the eye icon, it gives you a lot more detail on what is the background data and what each term means and things like that. Yeah, this shows like a snapshot of what the supply potential details are in terms of areas, and you can also click on standing timber, growth and removals. Now, the final application is from the community forestry category, tree trails. And if you have kids, or if you teach, or if you're doing any kind of conservation education activities or service learning projects, you'll like this application a lot. This is available both as a web and mobile application. The project actually creates an educational trail that's focused on trees. So students actively participate in selecting trees, mapping and identifying those trees, and then immersing themselves in related topics like tree structure and function, benefits of trees, tree health, history of famous trees, and ultimately producing and participating in a service learning experience. So they would like it. It's like taking things outside and exploring like things outdoors from the classroom. Now, Tree Trail serves schools in the digital age with high-tech online, easy-to-use, educationally sound project that gets kids outside and active in the environment. Now, if you look at the resources part, which is at the bottom, you also see that they have lots of different lesson modules and handouts, getting started guide for teachers. So there is plethora of information available on this app. What do I have here? Yeah. So I just wanted to like kind of zoom into 2 different trails that was collected by, I think, students or young kids. So on the left, if you see, there are trees with white hole, which means they didn't collect complete information. They might have missed out on a field or 2. Now on the right-hand side, you see a trail which has all the information. So you can actually look at the annual benefits for a particular species that you select. Now, as I mentioned, Tree Trails includes 10 lesson modules and provides a research-based instructional approach with online and outdoor activities to create learning forests at school. So that's one other application. And like I was mentioning in the beginning, if you have any questions or comments on these applications or the other applications on the portal, you can click on the contact option on the Texas Forest Info portal or use this URL. We are pretty good in responding back to your comments or questions. So we would be happy to hear from you. Now, transitioning it a little bit from Texas Forest Info portal, right? So using technology is not just in web applications. It's actually super valuable to streamline field workflows, improve the accuracy of data collection, and increase the efficiency of field work. So we use field maps and Survey 123 for various projects to optimize efficiency in field activities with the power of location intelligence. So some of the applications that we actually use smart device data collection is urban forest strike team, timber cruiser, oak quilt mapping. Actually, there's a lot of different projects, but I'll kind of be highlighting one or two in this presentation. But if you see on the left side, we also had a lot of projects or applications where we would rely heavily on paper maps or paper form of data collection, and transitioning that to smart device data collection made things a lot easier and also increased the accuracy. So one of the applications that we use smart device data collection is oak wilt mapper. So oak wilt is one of the most destructive tree diseases in the United States, and it kills live oaks and red oaks by plugging up all the water conducting tissues. So hundreds of thousands of oak trees have been killed in almost 73 central and west Texas counties. So if you're around there, you might have seen oak trees drying, or you might have heard about oak wilt also. But we have our central and west Texas foresters who use field maps to do online and offline data collection. So they actually collect trenches, mortality polygons, and that actually feeds in to a real-time dashboard where the program leaders or program managers, they kind of monitor different things like total number of trenches and if there are any outliers in data collection. So it's definitely helpful. Now, the other project that I wanted to talk about is the Urban Forest Strike Team. So a little bit about Urban Forest Strike Team. It's a team of trained personnel deployed to perform rapid tree risk assessments to identify storm damaged trees that pose a risk to people and property on publicly managed land. And they also help to document trees that meet FEMA debris management criteria for public assistance reimbursement. So if during Hurricane Harvey, Urban Forest Strike Team was actually deployed to a couple of cities like Rockport, and they were really helpful in collecting a lot of useful data. And geospatial data and technology are very valuable for post-disaster impact assessment and recovery efforts following a tornado or hurricane. So this strike team has been deployed after Harvey and before Harvey also on multiple other assignments. Now, during field work, the strike team records storm damaged trees using field maps. And on this screen, you see a dynamic dashboard. We use this for real-time tracking of the team in action. So team leaders and coordinators are able to filter the trees assessed by different crews, because typically on an assignment, there will be a lot of different crews. And when you filter that, it really helps in efficient crew planning and also prioritizing work. This dashboard also allows to monitor different attributes like the tree part, what is the frequency of it, or how many were like public trees versus private trees, what is the total number of trees assessed, a lot of different things. Now, coming to the last part of the presentation, it's about unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. So did you know that drones or UAV, which is like unmanned aerial vehicles, are an important tool used by natural resource professionals to gain insight into forest health issues, wildfire or disaster response, and habitat management. So if you look at this example, I wanted to kind of put it as a transition slide. Even for the UAS workflow, when we started the program at the agency, we used to have a lot of these paper forms, like before a certified pilot flies, we had to submit pre-flight authorizations and have the landowner permission forms. And once we fly, we had to like submit post-flight forms and maintain all these logs like pilot log and mission log. And all these were paper forms, scanning them, putting it into Basecamp repository. So it kind of was cumbersome and was not the best way of record keeping. So what we did was we transitioned everything, streamlined the workflow using Survey 123 and other apps. So Survey 123 really helps streamline the whole process of flight authorization and maintaining records. And if you see on the right-hand side, the top map, that shows the location and the contact information of all the certified pilots in our agency. So if we have any emergency response, or if we have to be deployed in an assignment, they can easily view where the pilots are located and can contact them. On the bottom, you see a snapshot of the dashboard. So whatever information is fed into Survey 123 can be pulled into the dashboard, and you can look at different things like how many missions have been flown. You can filter it by dates, you can filter it by the type of projects. So that's why I wanted to put it out here, because this is also an example of smart device data collection. All right, so before we go here, I wanted to tell that we actually conduct missions for forest health evaluation, wildfire suppression, educational videos, and a lot of different applications. Like we also do like proficiency flights. We have to do that to maintain our certification, but I'm going to quickly show a few of those and wrap it up with that. The first one is wildfire suppression. So drones support firefighting operations by providing an overhead view of the scene of the fire, which gives firefighters real-time information of how a fire is unfolding. And also in this example, if you see when a fire is starting to die out, it can still contain smoldering hotspots that are invisible to the naked eye. On the right-hand top, you see that's an image from the RGB, which is the red, green, blue sensor. It's just like our camera on the iPhone, but this is just on the drone. So sometimes you miss out on all these hotspots when you just view it with your visible eye or the RGB image. So in those kind of scenarios, when you have a thermal camera attached to the drone, it can help firefighters find these spots and make sure to avoid them. On the bottom right, you see an example or an image from the thermal infrared sensor, where you can very easily see those bright red or orange spots, which means that the temperature is hot, or there are like fires like still burning. So this is just an example of how we use drones in the wildfire response side of things. Wanted to show like another example on the forest resource development side. Now, if you look, if you had an interaction with like pine orchard managers, or if you have worked in those, you know that like managers of loblolly pine orchards, they often require an estimate for cone inventory in order to schedule and allocate resources for harvesting and other breeding related tasks. So this is actually in Magnolia Springs Seed Orchard. Now, if you want to manually estimate the pine cone counts, that's extremely labor intensive and also time consuming. While heavy equipment such as boom lifts can facilitate cone estimation, they impact tree health and cone yield due to soil compaction and increased traffic in the orchards. Now, our goal for this project was to investigate and explore to see if we can develop efficient methods for estimating pine cone inventory based on cost-effective platforms such as UAS. So this is actually DJI Metri 600, and that's one of my favorite pictures. So we had a thermal sensor, and we were collecting some data to see if the pine cones actually emitted a higher temperature compared to the pine needles. And we just wanted to like learn different things and develop algorithms to see if we can extract the pine cones automatically instead of manually going in and counting each and every cone. Yeah, here you can see a small study. It's actually a paper that we presented where we used DJI Mavic Pro and Inspire 2. And we answered a couple of research questions like what is the best way to collect images, like angle or how many images, overlap, things like that. And we used a random forest model and did some accuracy assessments and kind of saw if we can use UAS to actually do these pine cone counts. So that's another scenario that I wanted to share. I think this is the last one, but yeah, this one is a recent study where we used UAV LiDAR and UAV SFM, which is structure for motion data, to see if we can identify or map individual trees. And if you want to check out the full paper, it's on Open Geosciences, it's published. If not, definitely reach out to me. I can send you a copy of the paper. But here, if you look at it, our goal or the objective, what we wanted to study was an important preliminary step with regard to forest inventory and management is individual tree detection, and we call it ITD. And that's required to calculate forest attributes like stem volume, forest uniformity, and biomass estimation. So in this study, we provided a step-by-step tutorial for performing ITD using two things actually. One was a low-cost UAV derived imagery, and the other one was UAV-based high-density LiDAR. So we kind of compared the results, and also if you have LiDAR, that's the best thing to do in terms of accuracy, but it is expensive, and sometimes agencies or individuals will not be able to afford it. So in those scenarios, as an alternative, you can use a low-cost alternative approach where using UAVs, like just like Mavic Pros or even like better ones, if you fly it at a certain angle with a certain amount of overlap, you'll be able to get the 3D point cloud data. And in this particular study or paper, full-length open access codes and step-by-step information for accessing and downloading the data are also shared in the supplementary section. So if you want to explore it, we also have all the sample data, all the codes, so you can definitely take a look at it. So, oh yeah, I wanted to also share that we use drones a lot for damage assessments, emergency response. So this was from 2020, where we had Hurricane Laura kind of impact the East Texas part of the country. So we had images from before the hurricane and after the hurricane, post-hurricane. So these kind of images before and after helps you to see the changes, the impact, and also do assessments on how much damage was created. And better, like if you have multispectral data, you can also look at NDVI or how the tree health has been impacted over time also. All right, so yeah, I thought of sharing an interesting thank you slide. If you're wondering about this slide and not sure what those pictures mean, definitely tour through the famous trees of Texas story map. So the 4 pictures here are from my visit to some of the famous trees in Fort Worth area. It was actually a nice way to spend few hours during the lockdown. I think this was in 2020. So I was just like driving around and learning about these trees, which have witnessed exciting events in the history of Texas. So yeah, though, and I've added the URL at the bottom. You can take a look at it, and it has some really cool pictures and lots of information you can learn about the famous trees of Texas. With that, thank you everyone, and thanks again, URISA Texas, and I'll pass it over to Brian.
Well, very, very nice, Shruthi. Yeah, definitely a great presentation. I appreciate you going through that. So Matt is going to go through our chat and read off some questions for you that some folks may have. And then, but again, thanks a bunch. Matt?
Yes, sir. Okay, so we have a couple questions in the chat box. And before I jump into those, I encourage you to go ahead and add further questions into the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand or whatnot, you can chime in and ask them verbally. But let's go ahead and clear a couple off the board right now. So Daniel asks, hi all, the map My Property app looks great. Well, all the apps look great. I really like the option to upload and the figure export is great. Are there any widgets that allow the user to export the data layers? I attempted to see if the REST services were exposed and they were locked up. How does a user get a hold of the underlying data other than searching for all the data source that is already compiled in one place?
Okay, yeah, I think there is no direct or straight way where you can download the underlying data. Just for example, soils, and I know they have put it as a map service, and they might have logged it up for some reason. But hey, Daniel, definitely email me, and I can reach out to our geospatial developers to see if they can provide you with a link or at least the source where you can get it out, get the data from. For example, the vegetation layer, I guess it comes from NRCS. I know where it comes from, but getting access to it, you cannot directly do it from Map My Property.
Okay, great. So Jorge asks, is the canopy height model a raster?
Canopy height model. Yes, you generate that from the point cloud, but eventually you interpolate that, and it is a raster. Yeah, canopy height model, digitation, digital elevation models, all those are rasters.
Okay. Victor asks, how many years back does the collected data go?
Okay, so I think I'll have to ask Victor if you're referring to a particular application or if you can help me. Which one are you talking about in terms of the history of data?
Victor, if you can clarify that for us, that would be great.
Yeah, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that, like, for example, you guys have the urban forest strike team. So like that collects like the geospatial data and all that for environmental like events, like storm damage and all that. So that's what I meant it for. My bad for not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, urban forest strike team, they get deployed when there is a call or a request. For example, after Hurricane Harvey, they went and collected data, and I don't think that is private data, urban forest strike team. They use it to submit it to FEMA and things like that, but the emergency response or that kind of data is not private. But there are some of the other applications where you can go back to the historical data and look at it, not the urban forest strike team though. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Patrick asks, can you demonstrate data over like a 100 period scale, especially when talking about natural disasters? Also, draw my property is awesome. I will be using that for my family property. But the question there was, can you demonstrate data over like a 100 period scale?
Okay, so glad to know you'll be using it for your family property. That's exciting. Now to your question, 100-year timeline. We are not currently doing it, at least on the forest resource development side. I have seen a couple of different projects or research groups looking at either different things like storm related events or forest change using Google Earth Engine. So I know you can look at it if data is available or at least simulate it, but we are not doing it currently.
Patrick replies, good to know, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question from TT, and hey, TT, if you don't mind, if you put your full name in there, that will help us to get your professional development hours certificate out. So appreciate that. But TT asks, how does the aerial technology compare for inventories in hardwood or mixed conifer? What progress has been made on identifying individual tree species from remote sensing data?
What progress have they made? So I think that is a little more detailed question. Why I mean that is now remote sensing technology, it can be satellite, aerial, or it can be drones also, like data collected from drones. So it really depends on who's collecting the data, what are they collecting, what type of resolution. Individual tree species, at least like in some of the work that I have done. Mapping between hardwoods and softwoods, those can be done even like with leaf on or leaf off imagery. But if you want to go into species that are very similar, then you might need hyperspectral data. Yeah, I'm not sure on how extensive research has been done on individual tree species, but I know there are like a couple of different models out there or algorithms or even like data where you can play around with the band combinations and produce index maps that will help you map the data. But it also depends on the resolution, like I was talking about.
Okay, thank you. So Victor asks, when using Map My Property, what are the limitations of the tools it has to offer?
Okay, one thing that I can think right away is it's not a true GIS. What I mean by that is whatever you draw, for example, if you draw a boundary, it does not have any data attached to it. Like there is no database. So it's just like graphics, right? So definitely a GIS platform cannot be replaced by Map My Property. It's just like an alternative and a quicker way to produce maps. And what are the limitations? Like one other limitation that I can think of is when you export the PDF map, it has like specific things only that you can put on it. For example, title of the map and comments. But I know a lot of them, when you do layouts or maps, you can go real detailed into the cartographic elements. You can add a bunch of things there. So that cannot be done directly on Map My Property, but you can always download the data and load it up into ArcGIS Pro or any of the GIS platforms that you're working with and produce custom maps. But yeah, those are the two that I can think right off top of my head. And yeah, quick thing, sorry, Matt. So quick thing is there is another application on the Texas Forest Info portal called Plan My Land Operation, which might be very similar to Map My Property, but it has a lot of advanced tools and like detailed ones, which you might not see on Map My Property. So depending on what you're looking for or what are the target audience, you can choose your app accordingly.
Okay. We have any more questions here? It was a fantastic presentation. Shruthi, we really appreciate it. It was very informative. I think I saw, and Matt, correct me, or Addie, if I'm wrong, I thought I saw maybe 64 people at the height.
Correct, that's what I saw.
Okay. That is it's a really great turnout, and you're definitely doing some fantastic work and giving back to the community. So unless anybody else has any questions, we've got a few minutes here. If not, the presentation has been recorded and will be put up to our YouTube channel afterwards. Brian just told you really great work, Shruthi, and a lot of people are thanking you now, as you can see in the chat window. Liz Parrish, who's a URISA Texas volunteer. So yeah, it was just really good. Yeah, and I don't really see people some thanking you. So Shruthi, thanks a bunch. Matt, thanks for assisting, and Addie and Courtney. And once again, we have completed our URISA Texas monthly speaker series for June 2022. We'll be back next month and look to have you all attend and be on the lookout for your PDHs. But Shruthi, thanks a bunch, and we'll give everybody back 5 minutes of their day, as we all know everybody's busy, but we'll see you all next month. Thanks, everyone, and thank you, URISA Texas, again. Okay, thank you so much.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you,